Hey everybody, Jeff Harmon at phototacopodcast.com. And in this video, I'm going to review these 4 AI solutions to removing noise. We're going to see which of them does the best job most consistently across real world images, not those chosen by marketing to work best with their product, and see which of them does better, and does any of them or all of them make it true with the marketing material that you've probably seen, the ads that you've seen about like not needing to worry about noise or ISO settings anymore, and just being able to get into the tool. And this is going to remove all that noise, leave all the detail, maybe even enhance the detail, and just solve all of those problems. Is that real? Is that not? We're going to get into it. And I'm going to show you the workflow. I don't think most of the review videos out there show you how the tools work and what it is you have to do to make it so that you use these tools. And I did say AI for all of these. That's because version 12.3 of Lightroom Classic just released a brand new Denoise AI feature built right into the tool. Does it make it so you don't need any of the others? We're going to find out. And we're going to compare in 7 real world images. If you don't want to see the workflow, then just skip forward in the video to the end and you can get to the comparisons. I'll put YouTube chapter markers in so that you can just jump straight forward into that if you don't want to see the workflow pieces of this, which is going to take a while. So for those of you that do and you want to have that information as part of what the decision is and see like how long does it take and what's the requirements for using it, then stick around right here at the beginning and we're going to get into all of that. So let's jump into Lightroom now. And these are the 7 images that I am including in this review, not because I went and tried to pick images that deliberately have problems with any of this stuff. It's just these are real world images and images that are the kind that tend to be noisy. We have a couple of wedding images. We have a couple of Milky Way images. We have a hummingbird image that seems to be a common use case in the marketing. And we have a sports image, and we have just a super high ISO picture of a Christmas tree that we can be able to use to evaluate these tools. These are images that are also from different cameras. So the first 2 are Nikon. We have an Olympus image, several that are Canon 7D Mark II images, and one that is the Canon EOS R6. So we have a variety of photos from different cameras too, just to see also if that has any kind of impact. So we're going to go through this. I'm going to go as fast as I can, but this is probably going to end up being a pretty lengthy video just because there's so much to get through. Let's start then with what I've done, why there's 2 copies here. The first one of 2 here is the original RAW file. And then the second one with the little page curl, that's a virtual copy. You may know that already for Lightroom Classic. But what I've done, I went ahead and already created the best I could do in the fastest way possible for dealing with noise and sharpness in Lightroom. So I've avoided most everything else. The rules I used with this and the rules I'm going to set in the whole exercise of this video is this needs to be as automated as possible. The marketing material is telling us that rather than having to worry about it ourselves and not do a very good job of it, we can let the computer do the work and it can decide what is noise, what is detail. It can enhance the detail while removing the noise. So we're going to see if that's actually true. That means that I'm going to take out all of the human elements that I can. Every place where even if the tool allows you to override things or provide guidance to the AI, that you're still going to be able to, we're not going to use that. It needs to be as fast as possible and as human or as computer based as possible. We're going to actually use the AI. And so as I created these backgrounds, or as I created these virtual copies here where I manually reduced the noise, I did it as quickly as I could. I used all the sliders like you normally can that Adobe, as of version 12.3, now calls manual noise reduction controls that do the global noise reduction for the whole image. And I used the AI-based selection in Lightroom to select the subject different from the background and make it so that I could apply a little bit more noise reduction or sharpness selectively between the subject and the background. So there is some AI selection that went on there, but I did it as fast as I could for these 7 images. I probably spent about a half hour in reducing the noise, which is quite a long time for 7 different images, but I wanted to kind of get a bit of a feel. That's still mostly a manual process, and to compare that manual process results to what the AI results are going to be. That's kind of the best I could come up with on making it as fair as possible. I did do a little bit of exposure adjustments on some of these too, just so I could see the noise and I could see the detail. And you're going to be able to see then how some of these plugins also do not let you do that. You don't have an opportunity to really dive in and see the noise. So we're going to get through all of that in these images. So we're going to start with Topaz DeNoise AI. They're not in any particular order. That's the order I've decided to do it in. And so we're going to start with that one. So first up, I'm going to select all of the original RAW files. And now we have all those, so I don't get the virtual copies. I'm just going to select them all. And one of the things that you could do is, and the standard way that I normally go to use most add-ons for Lightroom, we usually call them plugins, but this is more like an add-on, is if you go to Photo, Edit In, and then you have various options for some of your tools. See, I own all of the Topaz tools. I own the Luminar tools. I didn't include Luminar in this review just for time's sake, and I haven't seen near as much advertising out of Luminar recently as I have the other options that are here. Same menu option, by the way, if you right-click on the images and go to Edit In, same exact options that are here. So if I start with DeNoise AI, here's where I'm going to caution you against using this method. Topaz in the documentation says not to do it this way. And in fact, with Photo AI, they give you a warning in the application about it if you do. You can see my only options here is to edit a copy with Lightroom adjustments. I can't do edit a copy or edit original, which is really what I like to do, is send the full RAW file into the tool without having it go through Adobe's RAW processor and let the tool use their RAW processor to be able to especially figure out the sharpening and what should happen there. And sending the mosaic data with it is important to be able to do that. I don't have that option with this method of invoking Topaz DeNoise AI. So this is not how you should do it. Regardless of what these settings are, it doesn't matter. This is not actually sending the original RAW file through to Topaz DeNoise AI. It's what would happen if I hit edit is Lightroom would generate a TIFF, which means it uses its RAW processing engine, generates the TIFF, saves it to the disk, and then sends that generated TIFF through to the tool. They don't want you to do that, and I'm not going to do that. So instead, well, how then do you do this? If it's not here, then how do you get it? For DeNoise AI, you don't have another option except for launching the tool itself, and then drag and drop the RAW files directly into it. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to drag and drop our 7 RAW files into the tool, and it's going to start loading them. You watch this lower left corner as it's doing this so you can see kind of how it's processing. So what it has done right now, you'll notice in the upper right, I have this navigation window to be able to choose an area in an image, and I'm currently at 200%. Let's just go down to 100% because that's actually the default is 100%. And you can see an area of an image, and you can see that the raw model is being used right now, and it's got an updated status. So we have an accurate picture right now of what the tool is going to do. And this is just the basic interface that you have to work with. If you were after trying to get this done as fast as possible and let the computer do all of the work, that's the default how it brought it in here. You can see I have auto on all of these. If I go down here, you can see auto, and I can scroll down. This is one of the things I don't like about this user interface. I can't make this list either be icons or expand the list height. I'd really love to be able to, especially if I have thousands of images, I'd love to be able to like temporarily drag this up over the top of the view of the image so I could see more of these at a time. But anyway, they're all set to auto, and I could just simply say, I could do select all right here. So I select all 7 images and do save the 7 images, and I'd be done. So you could easily do what I just did, drag, drop, put them in here. It takes a little bit to render the preview of what the window is going to look like. I could select all of them and say, go. Computer, do an auto selection of everything, decide everything for me, hit go, and then I do have to wait for it to process, which you'll see in just a second. But I want to show you that you do have some other options here. We're not going to use them in this video because that's against the rules of this video. We want the computer to do the work. But just so you know, so that you have advice or considerations if you are thinking about purchasing one of these plugins, you can see what else you can do. So I'm going to deselect the 7, and I'm going to go, oh, there, I just solved my problem. Now there is a way to be able to see all of the images that are there. If you just don't select an image, you can see the full list. So, okay, good. I learned something. All right, so I'm going to select just the one image, and I'm going to, I want to show you what you can do if you want to spend time on a single image. So this would be more like the use case where I have one image in particular, maybe a client to say, is there anything you do about this image? Or I accidentally took a couple of images at a higher ISO than I wanted, and I need to fix them. Or I have just one image I really want to print and for myself, or something like that. Then, and you want to spend more time, you do have options in Denoise AI from Topaz to be able to do that. So let me just briefly run through the user interface. We're not going to go exhaustively through it. You can just press and hold, and I don't know how well that's going to come through on YouTube, but you get a preview or show what the original file is. Obviously, you can just click this button too. But if you just press and hold, you can compare. So that's kind of a good way to be able to see, like, well, what did it actually look like, and what did Denoise AI do with that image, what it looks like. You really have to look at 100%. It's true here, it's true in Lightroom, it's true in all the tools, at least 100% one-to-one in order to actually see what is going on with the sliders and the settings that you've chosen. Anything less than that, and you're not really getting an accurate picture about how things are being handled. So you really have to dive in and go in close to be able to take a look at it. And that's true in all of these tools. Right now, this is selecting, because I'm in this view of single view, I can go to this split view as well. I can have the computer do all of the work. This is the way that you make it do it. So AI model is right now being chosen by the computer. If I deselect that, then I can choose the model. But the computer has analyzed this image, and it thinks based on the image and the analysis it did all on its own that the raw model here in Denoise AI is the best model to get the best result for this image. That's what it thinks. And not only is that the best model, because this is enabled, and the computer has decided what these sliders should be set to, it thinks that remove noise for the raw model needs to be 22 and enhanced sharpness at 46 in the raw model. That's the settings it came to on its own from its analysis. I can override any of it in Denoise AI. That is a capability of this tool. Not all of them offer this capability to override. So I'm going to show you another way you can do this. If you go to the comparison view up here in the lower right, you can see I now have 4 panes that shows 4 different models that are here for the AI engines and how it is that Topaz is going to do it. And real world, you can watch and see this one seems to be taking a long time to load. Low light is taking forever. I have found that if I click on it, then I may get a beach ball. Yep, and there it is. There's the beach ball. And that kind of breaks it out. Otherwise, it just seems to take a really, really long time for it to finish before it goes on. But I wanted to show real world usage. I wasn't sure that would come up this time, but as I use this, that actually happened. Okay, now it finally updated low light and standard. We have previews at 100% for all of these different models and how they would process it. And it might be tough to see on YouTube, but they don't look the same. They are definitely different. And so now what I need to do is make sure, as I'm evaluating this, I can kind of decide which model I think is best. I can override what it was that the computer thought was best, which was the raw model, upper left here. And I can see, like, does the clear model or the low light model or the standard model look better? Does it have a better result than what the raw model comes up with? And so we can check that out. To make sure that it's fair, I'm going to go through each of the models, and I clicked on the raw model and I kind of moved. So now all of the previews have to update. And now you can see low light update really quickly. If I click on the models, I can also make sure that the configuration of the models is still set to the computer doing the work. And it is on all 4 of these. Oh, not this one. This one was not set for the computer to do the work. It probably kept some of the settings that I had before. So this is the standard model. And when I clicked that to let the computer do the work, I now see more noise in the image than I had when my overridden controls were there. And so this is a way to start on evaluating the models in this tool and decide which is the best. And you can then click around in the images. So like we could click around in here and we could see the woman's face and which one does the best job on the woman's face to be able to do this. And as I look at standard and where the computer made the decision on how to configure standard, this looks downright terrible. This is just bad. The AI has really failed on this one in how that model should be configured. So if I click on that and I increase the remove noise slider, because I am now overriding what is there, that got a little better. There's still a lot of noise on the forehead. Okay, now we finally are at a point where the noise has been dealt with, but it looks over sharpened to me. And I could go play with sharpness. I could play with the models. I could decide which one I liked best. I could probably overcome some of the challenges of the AI and what it is that they have, because I think the shadows are overemphasized now, for example. There's probably problems in some of these models, and I could decide which one kind of gives me overall the best solution if I wanted to spend the time in the tool to be able to do that. I don't want to spend that time in this video. That's not what we're after. So we're going to go back to letting the computer decide everything. And again, it chose raw and it chose remove noise and enhance sharpness to be there. You can see kind of a preview of what that's going to look like here. And we could fine tune it if we decided we needed to, but we're going to select all 7 images. They are all set to do auto everything. And that's what this whole thing is. We're going to as fast as possible. So all 7 are going to the computer's going to do the work, and I'm going to save the 7 images. I get a choice now on how I want this to happen. So as it saves the file, because it got the raw, but it's going to output a new file. And so I could have it overwrite the original images, but when it's not a DNG file, you can't do that. So since these are none of these are the raw files or DNG files, I can't do that. So it's going to save a copy, and it's going to name it with the original name plus Denoise AI plus the model that got chosen, which is really helpful for me to be able to show you this as we review this. You can see which model. It won't be the same model that Denoise AI chooses across all these 7 images. It's going to choose different models that it thinks does a better job. You can determine which directory. I love this, that you can say, I want it just to go in the same directory as the raw file. And I'm going to preserve the input settings. If I float over that, apply the source image file format, compression, quality, and color profile to the output, which we did not do any of that in Lightroom. But this tool, if you had if you handed it a non-raw file, it would do that. Or if there was an XMP file, if it was a DNG file, it would try to reuse any edits you've done before. Since we're handing it just a plain raw file, there are no edits that were done before to be able to preserve. So this switch doesn't mean anything here, but we're gonna leave it on. Okay, so now I'm gonna hit save images. This is the actual real world time it takes to go through the 7 images through Denoise AI. It has to analyze the image to decide the models, it has to decide the configuration of those models, and then it has to actually process it and write it out. So it's not too terrible when you only have 7 images. But you can imagine if you have 250 or 500 or a couple thousand images, it's going to take some time to be able to get through this. You need to set that expectation. That's not something most are talking about, is how long does it take to do this? If you wanted to actually incorporate this into your workflow, what should you expect on how long it's going to take to have that go over your workflow? This is all happening, by the way, on an M1 MacBook Pro, 14-inch MacBook Pro, with a Thunderbolt connected SSD drive. And so the times here are going to vary unless you have exactly that same setup. But and it could take longer or shorter. It's very dependent on like the graphics card, the GPU capabilities of your computer. But in general, you can see that on my computer, it's somewhere between 5 and 8 seconds per image. And the 8-second one, by the way, was the Canon CR3 file, so the Canon EOS R6, and that it's a small data size, so you can't really draw conclusions, but it does seem like, and as I've tested this in other situations, it does take different amounts of time based on file type too. So if you're a Nikon shooter versus an Olympus shooter, it can be also some different times. But you should expect it's going to take some time. This honestly is probably one of the best cases. The M1 processor does a really good job with this AI stuff. And a PC with really good graphics cards can also do really well. But if you have something that's kind of slow in Lightroom already, your expectation should be this is going to take a little longer than what you're seeing here. But we're going to be able to compare the tools against each other so you can see kind of processing speeds as they go forward. All right, we're done with Denoise AI. We have our images, so I'm going to close that. Now, they were generated next to, and you can see as we look at these files, I have a Denoise AI raw model, raw model, raw model. So the first three images, it chose the raw model. Then it chose the low light model and the low light model back to raw. And on the last one, severe noise was the model it chose. That's the computer making the decision, and it decided all of that for me. We're going to be able to compare it. I could select these, drag and drop, but it's even easier to just come in here, right click and say synchronize folder, and I can import the 7 new folders or images. And now we have, these are the images that it brought in. And if I click back into here, so you can see them, now we have 3 copies, all of them. We have the original raw, we have the Lightroom manual noise reduction that I did, and we have what was brought in from the raw file. And you can see now my exposure difference between the two. Again, I did this all outside of Lightroom, so I had no idea that inside of Lightroom I changed the exposure. And just so I got the raw processing in Denoise AI and gave it the best possible chance to have the best possible results, which is how their documentation says you should do it. Okay, we're going to look at these closer. We're going to get the exposures all lined up and everything so it's fair. We're going to look at all that in a little bit, but we got more tools that we need to evaluate. Next up, I'm going to do Photo AI from Topaz Labs. So I need to select my originals again. And now I have original raw files here that I got to manually select between because I have these raw files. It considers raw files that Lightroom considers raw. Okay. We have them selected. I have all of the actual original raw files selected. And what I can do, again, I can go to Photo Edit In, and Photo AI is here. And I mentioned this earlier that if you actually launched it this way, if you launched Photo AI from this menu, or by right-clicking on the image and doing Edit In and Photo AI, it will actually warn you. So if I clicked this button, I, again, would have to, I don't have the option to do Edit a Copy or Edit Original. That means it's going to, Lightroom, if I clicked edit, it would generate TIFF files for each one of these. I could generate a PSD as well, but and JPEG would not be a good choice at all. And this would work. It would generate a TIFF for each one. It would use Adobe's raw processing engine to generate those TIFFs, and then it would pull those resulting TIFF files into Photo AI for AI to take a look at it and reduce it. But if you did that, it would totally function. And my experience has been the actual end result is not much different. So if this is the workflow you prefer, I think it's pretty safe to say that you're not going to get wildly different results. Just for this video, I want to follow the best recommended practice from Topaz on how their tools should be used. And Photo AI would actually warn you that, like, hey, you're not giving me a raw file here. So I'm going to definitely follow their advice. The other way that's built into this, which actually does a better job, is if I come down here to plugin extras and I do process with Topaz Photo AI, this does not generate raw files. This is going to just use Lightroom in order to say, I'm going to take the selected images and I'm going to put them into Photo AI, the same as if I had drag and dropped from Finder into Topaz Photo AI the way I did with Topaz DeNoise AI. If I replicated that same action, that would have been the same thing. I don't want to do Finder work if I don't have to. I don't want to go into Finder or in Windows, the Windows Explorer. I don't want to go into that and manually drag and drop images and then have to synchronize into Lightroom if I don't have to. The other benefit of doing it this way is that it's going to actually generate XMP files for each one of these images when I click this button. It's going to drop an XMP next to each one of the images, and I'm going to be able to then have the edits, the exposure edit that I did on the original raw file. I'm going to have that carry over into the end result. And it's actually going to make it so that it picks up for some of the others as we do it. So there's an advantage to doing this. You can also set up Lightroom that as you do the exposure adjustments, it will write XMP files out to the file system. I just don't usually retain that setting. I don't have that setting on. So there's multiple ways to deal with this. That is just a benefit that you get from invoking Topaz Photo AI the same way. So I'm going to do it this way just to demonstrate it so that you can see it. I'm actually going to do it the same way for PureRAW 3. So I'm going to click that. We're going to start in and it launched. You can see I have my 7 images down here. I like this view a little better than the list view that I had in Denoise AI. And you watch the lower left again to see how long it's taking to be able to give you the preview that you're seeing. So, okay, it's done. It's gone through and it's generated the preview for this small area of the image. And I have on the left the raw and on the right the preview of what would happen if you clicked save right now on that image. And it's done its auto work. So if I float over this on the left, you can see I have autopilot enabled. That's what the green, that means it decided all the settings. And it thought for this image, you need face recovery, you need raw processing, and you need sharpening. And it's decided some settings there too about what each one of those should be. So if I go over here, you can see some information that's here too. Like it detected 2 faces. It's got subject detection. And so actually I'm gonna go out to like 50% just so you can see that work a little better. So if I float over this, just like I did in Lightroom, where I did auto select the subject, and did some masking so I could do a little bit more noise reduction different on the subject than the background. It's done that here, and it's decided where it is, and it did a pretty decent job. We definitely have some gaps in the flowers down there. You can see we have some gaps on the shoulder up here. It's not perfect, but it's not too bad. It's a pretty decent selection. And then it recognized 2 faces, and you can actually turn those off if you don't want a face to be recovered. Maybe it's a face it detected in the background that you don't want to be emphasized. You have the ability to turn off a face, and you just do that by clicking select, and I can turn that one off. We're going to just leave it like it is. I'm going to say done, just showing you kind of some of the manual options. I also have the ability, and I can just reset to autopilot settings, which is what we're going to make sure we do before we say okay. We want the computer to do the work. That's the objective of this exercise, and see the reality of letting the computer do all of the work so that you don't have to do any of this. You do have some options, a little bit. Now, this is not nearly as much as you had with Denoise AI, even though I'm pretty confident the raw remove noise is using the same Denoise engines and the same models, and it's doing the auto selection. We should end up with kind of similar results because of that, but you can decide how strongly it's being applied between a normal and a strong, and you can even include a little bit of strength and detail here. So you do have some options. You can even turn it off. If you disagree with what the autopilot came up with and saying, hey, I think I need to remove noise. I mean, that's most of the reason we're here today. But if you didn't think it needed to remove noise, or maybe the sharpening is over sharpening, then you could turn it off. We have sharpening here, again, standard, strong. You can change the strength. You can decide if you want subject only, like I only want you to sharpen the subject, which is probably the majority of the cases in portraits. You want the subject sharpened, and you do not want that background sharpened. You worked really hard to get a blurry background. You don't want it sharpened. You can turn off recover faces if you don't like how the faces are recovered. And I'll show you some things about that in a little bit too. This enhanced resolution is to do enlargements of your images. So if you had to really crop in on a photo to get the right view that you wanted in the photo and have the right composition of the photo, then you could use enhanced resolution to kind of blow that crop back up to a bigger size that would work better for printing. That's so this Photo AI kind of has a bunch of the tools from so like the enhanced resolution is like gigapixel AI from Topaz Labs. So it's kind of it brings together a bunch of the tools that they sell separately, and it costs a little bit more because of that, because it's supposed to be able to use AI to decide how it should be able to enhance your image all on its own, using all of those tools that they've spent a lot of time on already to be able to make it happen. So we're going to go back. I'm going to make sure, so use autopilot is checked. It's just there and enabled. If you were actually doing this, again, you'd need to be at least 100% and start looking around the image. And in a lot of cases, you go to 200%. So for example, if I wanted to see how it is that it's dealing with this, which that does not look great to me. And that's probably what we're going to get as we say save and we go to look at the comparison. I don't like really what's done here, and it may be sharpening. And so I could just turn off sharpening, and yep, that looks like it does a little better rendition. Or I could try changing between strong and standard and be able to see now it updated between the two, how it looks. And I could change the strength, and So you get the idea about how it is that you have everything selected and what you could do, how you could move around, again, 100 or 200% in order to be able to make any actual judgment on how this looks. All right, we have our 7 images set up. They're all set to do autopilot. So I'm just going to say save to Adobe Lightroom. And this is now, again, real world about how long it takes to process. Again, on my M1 MacBook Pro, a Thunderbolt connected SSD drive, and letting it just go. And this takes a little longer than it does in Denoise AI, which is maybe why they don't show a timer, because in Denoise AI, you'll remember you saw a timer on how long it takes. It seems to take a little bit longer, and it's doing more work, so it makes sense that it would take longer. It's analyzing the image to find faces. It's auto-selecting a subject. It's doing more work in this Photo AI tool from Topaz than what Denoise does on its own. But it can be something where if you want to selectively apply these things, it might be a little better option to have the individual tools than the Photo AI where it's putting it all together, because you lose some of the control about how the tools work. So it's a decision you're going to have to make in your workflow, how you want to use the tools and what level of control you want to have. If you have the independent tools from Topaz Labs, you have the ability to let the computer decide a lot of things, but you also have the ability to go in on a one-to-one image and spend more time if you want to and make decisions and override or provide guidance to the AI and how it's going to do it. All right, so we're through 3 or 4 of these. We have a few more left, and we're going to get done here. I'm not going to speed up the video. A lot of editors would probably do that, but I want you to see the real world about how this works and how it goes. If you want to skip forward a few seconds, you can. Go skip forward 30 seconds, see if we're done. But I wanted to show or have the ability for you to see real world how long it took. Only 7 images. You can imagine if you have a lot more images, how much longer this is going to take. Okay. This is a common thing. I thought that they were supposed to have fixed this, but it did actually work. But it reports an error message there, which is interesting. And now Lightroom is importing all of the images. Okay, so I do have it. I now have this this image. I think it is. Those are the ones that I had selected before. So it's got to be this one. Let's float over the image. Nope, that's the original. This is the new one that got brought in right here. And it's hard to tell on this because it didn't offer those renaming options, which I would have preferred. Instead, what I have is just one that's named exactly the same and has DNG. I do wish that it offered the option for doing a little bit of renaming so that I could know better that, oh, this is one I took through Topaz Photo AI. So all real world stuff. You saw the error and you see my complaint about this with the renaming, that it doesn't offer any of that. There's also something interesting that happened here with this image in Denoise AI. You see I got these weird symbols that are part of the metadata that it pulled out. So that's interesting. Anyway, we're going to proceed now. I need to select my original images again, which now is numbers 2 of 3, because we're going to invoke this exactly the same way. Oh, and so you notice the XMP file got applied to this one because this one looks like it has exactly the same exposure, right? The file that came from Photo AI, as does this one. So it used the XMP to be able to do that from here. And there's going to be the same advantage to launching it with Lightroom, or sorry, through the plugins manager rather than going to Finder and importing it. The XMP file also will get applied there. So, but I'm going to go back to this, and I'm going to select the 2 of 3s, which are the originals, and we're going to come back here and select those. Okay, so I should have all of the original raw files selected now. Yep, NEF, ORF, CR2. Okay, I think I have them. We're good. Okay, just making sure that I had the original raw file selected. I have 7 images selected. I can see down here. So we're ready to go do this through PureRAW from DxO. So same way to launch it, plug in extras, and we have DxO PureRAW 3 right here. So same thing, I'm going to just click on that, and it's going to take the selected images, and it's going to offer me this. This is the most current version of the plugin, which they just removed. They used to have 2 more processing models offered here. They have decided that those models are less effective and less useful today. And so they've now kind of hidden those options. There is a way in the plugin when you go, if you go launch it standalone, not out in Lightroom, you have an option to be able to bring them back if you want to. One of the cool things about this is that DxO has done a really good job, or they've worked very hard to create optical lens profiles. And it's specific to the combination of the lens and the camera. And you can get some information as you float over those question marks to see what it is. They've worked really hard, so now they can offer optical corrections to the images. Not only are they going to analyze the image and make some updates to the noise reduction and sharpening, maybe even the colors, and I think we'll see that in one of the images here, but you can reduce lens softness that may be there because their profile, and you do have an option on how strongly you want to provide, or you want it to fix that softness. If there are softness issues in a given lens with their profiling that they've done, then you can correct it here. And vignetting, chromatic aberration, or distortion are all different ways too. We're going to see this complete image area. Actually, it's the same as maximum rectangle as far as I can tell. I haven't seen it actually fill in pixels, and I think we'll see that in some of these images when they come back. You have an output format. And if I float over this, it kind of tells you what the different output formats are. TIFF gives you lossless high quality output for archiving your images or further editing, but at a cost of a very large file size. They recommend DNG, but as the output to retain the data and have it. And it's trying to give you an estimate on how much storage it's going to use. You also have an option then of where do you want the file that it's going to generate, because RAWs are going in. It's not going to write that as a RAW file coming back out, or to the camera specific RAW file. It needs to do something with it. And by default, it's this DxO folder in the original images folder. So I have this RAW folder where I put the RAW files, and it's going to generate a DxO folder underneath that RAW file. That's the default. I really don't like it. I really wish this was different in this plugin. You can also specify a custom folder, and I could specify this folder, but I'd have to go find it. So if I clicked on this custom folder, it brings up Finder, and it would bring up Windows Explorer on Windows, and you have to go find the folder. It doesn't auto put it at the folder where you are, and I don't like that either. So I'm going to have it do it because it's the default, but I really don't like the way the default works on where the RAW file is going to go. I just want to, like most of the others, I just wanted to put it right next to the same RAW file. File renaming, you have some options on what you want to do. I've decided to do like the others, and it's going to add on this DxO Deep Prime XD. So DxO software and the Deep Prime XD model. So I could choose between the two models, and if you float over them, you can kind of get a distinction about what they are about there. Okay, so and then you also have a choice on export. If you were running this plugin standalone, you could say, hey, I want you to launch Lightroom and import into Lightroom 2 right after you did this, but we're not going to choose anything there. So that's it. There's no preview of the images. There's no overwriting anything in the models, configuring anything in the models. You don't have any other choices or anything else you want to work through. And you can see it's going to process all 7 images when I say start processing. So we're going to do that. And it's trying to make a guesstimate on how long this is going to take. You can see, why is this so long? We have a little bit of information. These float overs are kind of fun or useful to go through when you're first going through it, but about 3 minutes that we're going to have for it to do its thing on these images. And like Topaz Photo AI, this is doing more than just analyzing noise. Denoise AI is all about noise. There's nothing else being considered. It's not trying to add sharpness details to the image as it's going. Both Photo AI and PureRAW 3 are trying to do more. They are actually looking for, is there a way I can improve the details of the RAW file? And it needs the RAW file to do that, which is why we launched it the way we did. And you don't have the edit in option for this, so it'll work. And you can see it's already created the DxO folder over here. They're importing as they're finishing. The other thing this does that I really don't like, I use collections. Usually this is a brand new catalog in Lightroom just for demonstration purposes for this video, but I use collections pretty extensively in my own management of my own photos in Lightroom. And for some reason, DxO thought it's a good idea to create a new collection set and then create a brand new collection for every time you run this tool from Lightroom. I don't like it at all. I wish it wouldn't do that. I wish I had a way to turn that off, because every time I go and delete those afterwards, I don't like having the collection there. I don't see a reason for it. It's not valuable to me to be able to see when I ran raw files. Now, maybe some of you would have a reason for it. So that's why I said I really wish DxO would just give me a configuration option to change it. So real world, you can see how long it's taking for 7 images to process through it. Is it worth it? We're going to find out in the comparison. We're getting close to that comparison evaluation here, but it takes a while. And I think we're probably, if I actually time this out, I don't think the 3-minute guesstimate that it provided is actually accurate for the 7 images. It feels like it's longer than that to me. But you can see where if I had a lot of time, or I had a lot of images that I needed to process through this, you're going to want to go do something else for a while. If you wanted to put your whole shoot through the tool, you're going to need to spend some time doing it, which is the case for all of them. It's really kind of currently the downside of trying to have AI do this. It's still not super practical, especially if you're on a timeline. Shot a wedding and you need to get the wedding images to the couple like today or maybe early tomorrow or something like that. It's not practical to think you're going to go through it. Or sports. Your sports photos are not as valuable. The longer you wait to kind of post them or use them, the less valuable those are in general if you're shooting a sporting event. And putting all of them through this tool, that's going to add quite a bit of time to your processing. So it's probably more like you need to cull your images, decide which ones are the deliverables, and do it. Okay, so it's now brought this in. Another note I want to make here, as I have used DxO PureRAW 3 on individual images, it takes long enough to do it and import that I've seen a delay, a gap between when you use it on a single image and when it comes into Lightroom. So you may see the processing window that we just saw go away, and it could be, I've seen anywhere between 10 and 15 seconds on my computer, and it could be longer on slower computers before it actually imports into Lightroom. So if you don't see the image immediately after processing window goes away for DxO PureRAW 3, then just wait 10 or 15 seconds and see if it comes up. If it doesn't, then you can go to the folder and do sync, and it'll bring them in. But you can see I've got my DxO PureRAW 3 collection set and the collection of when I did this. I don't like that. I'm going to select this and delete it. I hate that collection set. Okay, and you can see it did a DxO folder underneath, which I also don't like. So now we have most of our images done. The one we don't have done is I need to be able to do the Lightroom AI. So we're going to go through the brand new process to be able to do that. It's just barely released. And I think I still have to select images 2 of 3. Yep, those are the ones that I need to select. So I'm going to select all of the images 2 of 3 to get to the original raw files again. And we're going to process all of them in batch. We're going to let the computer do as much of the work as possible. There is a difference in how this works for Lightroom. So, okay, I have selected my images. I have all 7 of the original raw files selected, and I'm going to go over to the develop module. That's where the new button is to do the Denoise AI, and here's that button, noise reduction. This is an update to the details panel. You used to only have these options, the manual noise reduction options. And this is what I did. I used these in the manual noise reduction. And this, of course, applies to the globally to the entire image when you use those options. Now the default view when you come into the detail panel is going to be like this. It's going to kind of hide the manual noise reduction sliders to help people want to hit this button. But you can get to them very easily, no problem. I hope Adobe doesn't take those away because I think there's still value in those global noise reduction edits. But we have Denoise AI, and if I click on this, you can see, so it's generating the preview. You can see how long that's taking. And by default, it seems like it brings it up to, it looks to me like about a 200% view. It doesn't say I probably could go read documentation and find out, but I haven't done that yet. So this is the enhanced view. If I press and hold, just like the other tools, I can see the raw view. There's a couple of downsides to this, and it being early, we'll see if it changes. I can't resize this window, which I really wish I could. I also can't move around. It's supposed to work this way, I think, because it does in Photoshop, but I can't actually, if I click on this navigator to move around the image, I can't. That would be really nice to be able to do that. So I'd like to be able to resize this, make this bigger, so I can see more of a preview. And but I can't do that. The way I move around the image is I have to hit the minus on the magnifying glass, and then I can go pick another area. So we can pick the face here, take a look at what it's going to do, and see what it is. Okay, so control-wise, there's not much here in the controls. I don't know there. If I float over the info bubbles, you can kind of see a little bit of information about this. Super resolution or denoise is automatically deploying, like enhancing the raw details. And then super resolution, this is the enlargement stuff. So you can be able to use this, even though it's not very intuitive, you can use this to try to do super resolution and increase, like if you cropped in tight, this is another place where you could try to increase your resolution. It's estimating 3 minutes. You can create stacks with the images. I'm not going to do that. And then Learn More will tell you more about these features. By default, if I double click, which is the case in all of the Lightroom sliders, it goes to kind of what the standard setting is. And by default, it's set, Lightroom sort of wants you to use it, or Adobe wants you to use this at a 50% amount level for denoise. But at 50% on this image, it doesn't really get rid of a lot of the noise. If I go to the background, there's still graininess here in the background. There's still graininess. So I would want to, and I want to go to an area that has more exposure so I can see the noise better. I'm going to come here. I want to make the graininess go away as much as possible. The other tools I know are going to do a better job of taking the graininess out. So I'm going to start increasing this until the graininess. And the good thing is that the preview updates really fast. It's amazingly fast. But I'm going to go until a lot of the graininess is gone. And in the dress at this point at 69, I'll just make it an even 70. A lot of the dress, I don't see a lack of detail. Let's look in the flowers area. So yeah, a little bit of graininess still, but I know by experience that it's easy for me to overcook this and choose too much denoise, and it sacrifices sharpness, which you don't have a lot of control over with this. All you can do is change the strength. So let's look here. I still see some. Maybe I'll go 75. Let's just see if I go up to 75. I don't know. This is real world experience though, and I'm gonna go up to 80. We're gonna go to 80. We're gonna leave it at 80 and just decide that took out a lot of the graininess at 200% view, and I still see, it looks a little soft now with the sharpness details here, but maybe you could recover that anyway. So I'm gonna override. As a human, I'm gonna override it. Oh, that's violating our rules. I'm as human overriding the defaults. We have to go to 50 because that is the default setting that Adobe says you should set this at. So we're going to go with the defaults, and I'm going to enhance the 7 images. Now let's watch. Here in the upper left is how long this is going to take to do this. And it's not while the preview, that window that I had, was pretty fast, it's not so fast to actually go through the images. So whatever it's doing right now, Lightroom is analyzing the images, and it is auto deciding how it should do noise reduction on those images. So, and some of them are starting to import. As you can see, it got through with one of them. I wish I had a count here too. That would be really cool to be able to have a count. I guess it doesn't matter that much. You're really gonna go get a drink, go use a bathroom, or do something else while it is processing these images. But real world usage and how long it takes to do this, you're seeing how long it is. Again, slow enough. I don't think this is practical for at least my workflows. It wouldn't be to do this across every image from a big shoot, a wedding or a sporting event. Maybe the Milky Ways, because I wouldn't have a ton of Milky Way images coming out of a shoot. But yeah, to think I'm going to process thousands of these through this, I wouldn't want to spend the time on that. I would instead probably use either Photo Mechanic or the library module with embedded previews to cull the images and choose which ones I wanted to deliver to the client. And then I would run this only on those images that survived the culling. Okay, still going, still importing, and I'm going to let it run rather than speed it up so you see the real world time that it takes. You can probably skip forward about 30 seconds or a minute if you want to. All right, almost there. Okay, we're done. Task completed. We have all of our images. I can go back to the library module now, and we have a number of images for every one of our originals, all different results from the post-processing tools. So for those of you that jumped forward to this section of the video, I am now going to do the comparison of the results from all of these tools that we have. And it's going to take some time to go through this, but I think it's valuable. We're going to zoom in at 100 and 200% in a comparison view and be able to see what it was that each of these tools produced. And we're going to do that from the library module, which is not quite as useful as in the develop module, but because of how the rendering engines work, the library module doesn't give you a completely true picture all the time of the actual image and what's going to be there, but it's the best way to be able to try to compare these images. So we're going to use that to be able to compare where we arrived on each one of these images. And I'm going to start with, and I want to remind you that in case you skip forward, the rules for this in this video was to let the computer do all the work. This is not, I didn't do any manual overrides of the denoise, the auto AI-based noise reduction. This is all how the computer decided. So the AI analyzed the image, decided how it should reduce the noise, how it should sharpen, how it should react to faces, and all of those options that the tools have. And it did all of the work. Some of these tools, like Denoise AI, can offer capabilities to override that, but I didn't do that for any of these images. So you kind of see this is the computer do the work result. Okay, let's start with a comparison between the original raw, which I think is this image, yep, and we're going to go to the manually noise reduced image, just so you can kind of see what it was that I was able to arrive at in Lightroom with the manual tools. And at this view, it's useless. You cannot make a decision at a fit view on almost any case. It's just not going to work. You need to go to at least 100%. And in some cases, and we're going to do it a lot here, you're going to need to go to 200%. But I think we can do a pretty decent evaluation here. Let's actually go to 200%. So you can see kind of the face. Yeah, we got rid of a bunch of the graininess and then the noise. And at 200%, it's kind of unfair. But we still have some. It's not all gone. And we've definitely lost a little bit of detail and sharpness too. It's a common sacrifice. Also, as you look, remember, I used auto select masking on the subject so that I could get a little better, because you can see the noise is really, really dealt with well in the background. But auto select, I could tell it missed here. And I mean, that's a really fine detail. It's tough, obscured by noise too, to make it hard. So Lightroom's auto select masking made a miss there on the subject. Let's now I can actually use the navigator. Here's the male's face, and you can look at the hair is kind of an important aspect. It did a decent job here of selecting the subject. To me, it looks like in that area. We have kind of the suit coat, which is going to be, I think, important as we review some of the others. Let's look at the flowers. And you can tell it missed some details in the auto select here too for the subject. So we have some parts of the flower that are really tough to see. Noise reduction or the amount of noise there makes it really hard. And Lightroom auto select mask didn't see that as part of the flowers. So it deselected that, and it thinks that it made it part of the background, which has more noise reduction applied. Let's look at the dress here. And yeah, we definitely softened this. The grain actually kind of contributes to the detail in the dress in this image, and I've definitely lost some detail there, but we've dealt with the noise pretty well. Let's look here at the bow tie and the collar. All right, so a decent review. Oh yeah, the background. Let's look at the background. Yeah, we're retaining enough information and dealing with it. The backgrounds in a portrait, we definitely want that to be, we don't care if that's blurred out a lot more. We don't want it so much that you can't even tell the environment it's in, but we definitely want to deal with the noise more. We're okay with losing some detail in portraits. And let's look over here. So this looks really good compared for this in the manual effort. I think you could arrive at better results if you spent more time in manually working on the noise reduction. Honestly, in this image, if I didn't have the AI tools, I'd probably take it into Photoshop where I have even better controls to be able to deal with the foreground and background and so on, and do some other things like unsharp masking and so on. But this is a decent enough view if you're only able to use Lightroom, or that's where your skill set lies. It's not a terrible result. This is a usable image, because if I back out to 100, you don't see the grains nearly as much anymore at 100, and that's really kind of where you need to evaluate how it is. Oh yeah, this is another place. Let's look at 200% there to see, and yeah, we've definitely lost a little bit of detail there, but overall, it's pretty decent to be able to have that, and none of it's really over sharpened. I mean, I have control over that, so pretty decent, not too bad. Let's change now, so that the comparison is between, I'm going to use my Lightroom manual process to compare. Well, actually, no, I'm going to change that. We're going to use the original raw file on the right, and the different results from our AI tools on the left. And I'm going to go back out to 100% at first. Okay, so on the left, this one is out of Photo AI. I know remember, it's hard to tell because Photo AI does not offer renaming of images. It's hard to tell that that's what this is, but that's what we've done. The NEF file was processed in its raw form, and the Photo AI did its thing, all fully automatic, and produced a DNG file with these results. And as I look at it, I think we have over sharpening in the jacket. I think we have, let's look at the flowers. In the flowers, it did, I mean, it kind of saw this better than the auto select mask I had in Lightroom Classic, but it's over sharpened here too. This is really artifact. I would not like how this looks. At the same time, the flowers look a lot softer, so it's kind of weird that you end up with this super sharp detail here on these green part of the bouquet, and the flowers kind of look soft. Let's look at the face, and this looks very over sharpened to me. Plus the photo, or the face detection and the face enhancement, has absolutely, it's tried really hard to give us better details, but boy, those glasses look super over sharpened. And we have a kind of an issue. I don't think this is not my image, so I don't know for sure, but I don't think her tooth, this tooth is longer than this tooth. And I think that's kind of been messed up a little bit here. The face work, and then the blurriness of these, it seems like it struggled to tell the difference between the background and her headdress here. So that seems like a problem. Let's look over here. It's replaced an eye, which if it had done it really well on both sides might be okay, but looks weird to have one eye with like so much detail and the other eye not. But this is a real problem. Having this hair look like this is not okay. That's not acceptable. So there's definitely a lot of challenges with how Photo AI dealt with this image. We have over sharpening here again. Let's look at the background. It I think did a better job than what I got with Lightroom in general. It's we could compare against it, but I want you to see the raw file and not what I did. And we do have some kind of, I guess it looks like some streaking here too, so maybe that's not too bad. Let's look here by the feet and see see how that is. I'm going to go back out to 100. And yeah, I think it did a decent job here with the ground anyway, and making it look like a good transition between what is really blurry in the back and what is more sharp here. And that looks good. I like how that came out. So Yeah, not too bad. There's not other faces in here, so I don't have to worry about that. But some of the artifacting and some of the face stuff, if you do have the option in Photo AI to turn that off, and maybe that would have produced a better result. But then you have to manually intervene. You've got to go decide image by image what you want on and what you want off. This is what the computer decided, and I don't like some of the decisions. I don't think this is a very usable image, but you can be the judge for yourself. All right, so now we have Deep Prime. So this is PureRAW 3 and how it did it. And again, I see some artifacting. We didn't, this, I'm sure that her mouth did not look this way. I don't have to have the image to see it. But then look at this. That is a massive difference in how the headdress is done. And it brought in some colors. I don't know if those were the right colors, but it brought in some colors. So that's really cool. But I don't like this. Let's look at the man's face. Much better with the hair. Like that much better. With the jacket, maybe a little bit of artifacting that I don't like, but we're at 200%. So at 100%, it doesn't look terrible. I don't really like this area in specific, but it's not too bad there. It's not too over sharpened. Maybe just slightly over sharpened, I think, from what we have in the original to here. But not too bad. In the background, yeah, that did a pretty good job. I like that. That looks pretty good. So overall, PureRAW 3, oh, and look at the flowers. Yeah, those flowers are much better. That's probably a lot closer to what it actually looked like. It did a pretty decent job, especially at 100. It looks really good. And 200 is almost unfair because we don't really see things that close, even when we print. Unless we're printing really, really large, we don't really see things. We've retained a lot of the detail here. So far, I think the DxO PureRAW 3 is the best. Though I would still, if it was me and I was delivering this to a client, I would absolutely want to go into Photoshop and I would want to kind of overlay this on top and deal with this area that doesn't look as good. And the shadows are really emphasized too, but I mean, it's a pretty decent, it's the best I see here. Okay, now we have, this is what came out of Lightroom. So remember, we let the computer do the work, and Lightroom, Adobe says 50% strength is kind of the average use case. And we end up with a lot of extra graininess that I don't like. So you either could manually decide if you want to increase the strength of the tool, or you could just, after you've run through this, you could probably add a little bit of noise reduction globally to the image and just kind of get rid of a little bit of the graininess. But the teeth, again, are a little bit messed up here on this side. Let's look at his face and hair. That looks pretty good. It's not a grainy, still, but acceptable. I don't see over sharpening in the suit, which is great. That looks good. We have a pretty good detail. I like this rendition a lot. Let's look at the flowers, and it did a much better job than my auto select masking did in being able to do this. So we have really good detail in the flowers. The only objection I have really to this image is it's just got still a little bit too much grain in it. So I would want to further reduce the noise, and you'd have to deal with that separately. Again, maybe you could turn up the strength because we did only do 50% strength on applying this, but not bad. I still think the PureRAW 3 is a better image, especially since it was fully automatic. I wouldn't have to do any kind of human analysis. Oh, look at this. We get the colors here too. So interesting that we got much better color rendition out of this than I got out of my manual process or in some of the others. So this is a decent alternative. If you didn't have, or you don't want to spend the money on PureRAW 3 or any of these other plugins, you can see now that Adobe's AI is getting, fairly close to PureRAW 3's processing results, other than having a little more grain. And maybe if we applied it a little more strength, it would do that for us all very automatically. So that's pretty decent. Before we compare the last one, I've got to fix an exposure change. And remember, we did the denoise completely outside of Lightroom as per their recommendation. So I need to see what was my exposure. It was 1.15. I'm going to come and do a 1.15 boost in exposure so that I can have it be the same exposure. And now we'll compare the original with the raw. Okay, so here we go. So on the left, Denoise AI, and on the right, the raw file. And over sharpening artifacts here for sure. And when it auto decided it has over sharpening, we don't get the nice separation and color rendition in the headdress. This is not too bad, but over sharpened. I just see, to me, this looks like a lot of over sharpening, and it makes sense. We saw this in Photo AI because I think it's the same engine. And yeah, we have some weird artifacting here that's not great. Let's look at his face. This is much more acceptable than Photo AI, so that must have been that face detect and face enhancement that caused the weirdness there, but still kind of over sharpened. We have these details look a little sharp, and same with the suit coat, looks a little over sharpened. And the ground is dealt with okay, but this looks, yeah, this is not as good a result down in here as some of the others that I'd seen. So that's there's that. Let's look at the background. Background looks pretty decent, not too bad. Probably better than I got with the Lightroom controls. All right, so for the first image, my personal opinion, and you can all decide on your own since this is the video, you have it all. I think PureRAW 3 is probably the best automated result, and that there's high potential that the Lightroom Auto AI was able to really make it good. Let's move to the next image just to get moving on this. I'm gonna do the true up on the exposure first, so that's 2.2, and let's go do 2.2. If I had enabled the feature in Lightroom to write out the XMP files, oh no, it wouldn't have mattered. We did Denoise AI completely outside of Lightroom, so that's why we have to true that up. Okay, let's go first between the raw file and, and I need to, the raw file and there we go. All right, raw file's on the right, and this is Photo AI on, whoops, it's my Lightroom changes. Sorry, raw file on the right and my manual Lightroom noise reduction on the left. There we go. All right, so let's look at the face. And, not bad. It's definitely softer. I've definitely sacrificed a little bit of detail and sharpness for noise reduction, but the graininess is mostly gone, and I like the background a lot. Where we ended up, again, a little bit softer on the dress, but this seems very usable to me. It took a little bit of effort. We're looking at kind of what the auto select masking did too, and I don't see, at least right now, I don't see any kind of problems where the masking didn't work. It did a good job, and it was all auto, none of the work. So the dress looks great. The ground, let's go back out to 100 a little bit. The ground looks pretty good. We definitely lost some detail, but I don't think that's, super material, super important to this image to be able to see that they're on carpet and what the carpet looks like. So I think that's acceptable to be able to have that. Let's look in these balloon or whatever these things are, these orbs. And yep, definitely a little softer, but the noise is very much gone. The faces here, yeah, you can kind of see how it's gone. So there's kind of what I could get through the manual work to be able to get this to go. All right, now we're going to change to looking at the raw file, original raw file on the right, and we have Photo AI on the left and how it did it. So let's start at the bride's face. And again, now this is more pleasing than the last image. This is pretty acceptable, but it's kind of oddly over sharpened to me still, like over detailed compared to the rest of the image. It kind of sticks out. And again, really not good for the hair. The suit, again, looks over sharpened to me, as does the dress looks over sharpened. And let's look at some other things like, you get better details here. So without the noise. So I think this did a better job than mine on retaining detail. This looks great back here. We have, it didn't recognize this as a face, it looks like, which is great. That's good. That could be a problem in which faces it sees. It definitely recognized that face, which is not great because you don't really want that emphasized in the image. So if I was processing this manually, I'd make some different decisions. It's mostly a usable image to me, but it is definitely over sharpened in areas and kind of has some odd details. I don't know. I guess it retained a lot of the good detail. So in general, it did a pretty good job. Maybe I'd prefer this over what I did in Lightroom. But let's see how the others compare. So now we have DxO PureRAW 3, and I think, this is probably, I think I liked the other one just a slight bit better, but it's really good. Let's look at the headdress real quick. Yeah, we lack sharpness. It didn't really decide that this needs to be sharp, and we don't get the color. Whereas in DxO PureRAW 3, I definitely prefer that with the headdress. I wasn't there, so I don't know if this is accurate, but if it is, that is much better. Oh yeah, and the hair. So that's right. The hair was a problem in the Photo AI, and so I wouldn't want to use that image, but the hair's great here. I think slightly over sharpened, but not terribly so here. Same with the dress, maybe very slightly, but not as badly over sharpened as it was with the other. And then we definitely retain, this is better than my Lightroom for sure. We retain the detail in the carpet, and in the good ways, because back here we don't need it. We do have a little bit of artifacting back here. It kind of detected some edges that aren't actually, shouldn't really be there. It's just kind of noise, a result of noise. But again, I like the PureRAW 3 better overall than any of the other options. Then we have, this is the Lightroom Auto Denoise, and wow, it's got a good job. We have the headdress is really well detailed and has some color like we saw with PureRAW 3. I like the dress. I think we've retained the detail in the dress. I like the coat. I like overall, this is better to me in kind of the balance between noise and details, but we still have a little bit too much graininess in the background for me. And I'd probably want to see if I could go and make some adjustments, maybe apply just a little bit of global noise reduction further, or change the strength again. So this looks to me really comparable to PureRAW 3, and I might, you get that for free. You get it, for free. You get it with your subscription to Adobe. So very close, maybe 1A, 1B kind of scenario. And then here is Denoise AI. Very over sharpened. We at least get the headdress better than Photo AI did, probably because of some of the face detection and things that it's trying to do. But this rendition, what it came to with the face, I don't like quite as much. Let's check out the groom's hair. Yeah, it's okay. It's all right. I mean, if I hadn't seen other images that were better, I might have decided that this was pretty good, just over sharpened, which kind of tends to be a theme that we're seeing in the computer decided processing for these things, where it's over sharpened. Let's check the ground and go back out to 100 so we can kind of see it. Not as good as either PureRAW or Lightroom's Denoise AI. And let's check these spheres. Yeah, I guess it's retaining some detail there, maybe a little better than it did on the others, but in general, it just seems like over sharpened. Let's check the face over here, and that's more normal, not weirdly detailed like we had. All right, so there's the comparison for those images. I, again, would choose, I think, either PureRAW 3 or the Lightroom Denoise AI in doing this. Okay, let's start here with, I got to deselect that one. There we go. Okay, so on the left is the raw, and on the right is what I got in Lightroom. So we're starting kind of at the ship that's in the picture. And here, let me show you the picture first. So you have the ship in the Milky Way. And we obviously didn't do any editing, take out like this light streak here, for example. All right, stars. And let's even go to 200%. So decent noise reduction and getting rid of a lot of the grain. There's a whole lot more that can be done using like contrast and clarity, and a lot more can be done here. But this was auto-selecting masking, where I used luminance masks to isolate the stars from the background, and could retain kind of the sharpness of the stars for the most part, while doing a lot more noise reduction in the background. And then we have like down here in the cloud, we'll go to 100%. We want to retain the cloud because that's a part of this. That's a big part of Milky Way images, is the cloud. And so retaining that, but still having some of the details. So you can see some like the black and white, maintaining some of this contrast is important, and was able to do that with the auto select masking and then doing noise reduction there. We also, you can see like there's some banding. Hopefully you can see that on YouTube too, where there's some banding in there, and it's kind of there a little bit in the result, but not too big sharpness. So what's not here, and I think you're going to see in the others, is any kind of streaking or artifacting. These stars are not pinpoint stars. The exposure is just a little bit too long, so the stars were rotating and it captured streaks instead of pinpoint stars. And that tends to cause problems with AI. So we'll see how that plays out with all of them. But I've seen, as I've tested images, that seems to be an issue with AI. With the antenna here in the boat, or the mast, that looks pretty good. Not too bad. We definitely give up a little detail, a little softness, but I like kind of how I see the details here better. It's pretty decent. It's a very good starting point for doing a Milky Way post-process. A lot of Milky Way shots need a lot of care. They're just so noisy and there's so little light that we need a lot. But in general, this is a pretty decent starting point for doing some processing in Lightroom. Not too bad, but let's see how the others fare. Okay, so now we have on the left is the Photo AI and on the right is the original RAW file. And Photo AI definitely did a better job on the boat. We retained more detail than I did in Lightroom, more detail on the boat, more softness, lack of grain here. Photo AI did a better job with the boat here for sure than I did. Let's check the stars though, and let's see how it did. I still see a lot of color banding in this image. In fact, more than I see in the raw file to me. There's a lot of pinks and a lot of magentas in here that are kind of an issue, and there's a little bit of streaking and artifacting, more than I had in my Lightroom version, my manual process version. Oh yeah, we have a lot here, a lot of streaking you can see in there. And it's harder to see at 100%, but if it's viewable at 100%, that's a problem. If it's something you don't like at 100%, then that's not good. 200%, maybe you're going to be okay. But yeah, I'm seeing actually quite a bit of additional artifacting and streaking in the image. The AI just seems to struggle with that, and it may be across all of them. We'll see. But yeah, I don't know. I prefer the boat from this, but I definitely prefer my processing in Lightroom for the sky. So I would want to kind of combine the two in order to get a result there. Okay, now we have on the left is DxO and on the right, the original RAW file. Let's take a look at the boat. Kind of similar, it seems to me, in the boat in retaining detail. There's like a lot of detail here that I didn't have in the others. This might be slightly over sharpened, the name of the Donna K, but boy, for the rest of it, I would definitely take that. And then I see at 100%, lots of artifacting in here. So even PureRAW 3 has really struggled with the stars. If there's streaking stars, it seems to generate phantom streaking stars out of the noise that's in the image. And so yeah, to me, again, this is not as pleasing a result or as good a starting point. So I'd also want to take the boat. Now, maybe we should compare the two boats. So here's the boat for, on the left, DxO, and on the right is Photo AI. And I don't know, it's tough because I do feel like this is over sharpened a bit, but some of the other details that are up in here I like, and it's definitely more sharp on those than here. So maybe I think I'd give the nod to PureRAW 3. Okay, now let's go over to, this is the Auto Denoise AI from Lightroom. Sorry about that. Auto Denoise AI from Lightroom. And I think we're retaining a lot of the details similar to PureRAW 3. Oh, and whoops, I have PureRAW 3 selected. So you can tell, actually, this is a decent comparison. This is the PureRAW 3, and this is Lightroom Auto Denoise. And they're super similar, just like we've seen in the other images. They're similar. How about with the stars? Yeah, similar kind of struggles with light streaks in the image. But this is, that, you know, they're similar. They're very, very similar. Kind of encouraging that you might be able to start with this, and with your subscription, you get this model. All right. And now let's compare Denoise AI to PureRAW 3, or yeah, that's fine. PureRAW 3 will compare. And yeah, I like the details of the boat better in PureRAW 3 than Denoise. And the stars are definitely, all of the AI models just struggle with it. I think it's more pronounced in the PureRAW 3 than it is here in Denoise, but it's better in, oh, and so, yeah, let's switch them. All right, so this is, let's compare between these two because these are the two that I would do. It's just super hard to make a decision for me. Given this is free and available for free in, as part of your subscription, I should say, in Lightroom, I think I would choose the Lightroom model because they're so close. And I like that this doesn't seem to be as over sharpened. They're really close though. Very close to the same. But yeah, now that I zoom in at 200%, this is over sharpened to the point where it looks like it's almost like etched, or the name is raised on the boat. And I don't know if that's true because this isn't my image either, but I don't think it is. Anyway, I would choose Lightroom's auto denoise in that situation. So far, I haven't chosen my work, which is to be expected, honestly, because that's the whole idea, is the the AI is supposed to help us. Okay, now we have on the left, we have the raw, and on the right is what I did manually in Photoshop. Again, in fit, you can't tell anything, so you have to zoom in. So let's look here. You can see I do have more pinpoint stars in this image, and then we dealt with the noise, but still trying to retain, especially for the cloud, trying to retain the distinction between the dark parts of the cloud and the light parts of the cloud. So there's that. There's this tint area to look at. We have some wrinkles here, and how did it do with that? Not too bad. We have these weeds in front of the tent, and we've got a little bit of detail there, but it's definitely lost some sharpness. But we've been able to deal with the grain and the noise decently. Let's look here. This is a big difference. This tint, I don't like so much what we were able to get to. I think we could work through this manually, of course, a bit more to be able to deal with this. But the way that it's rendered the tint, it's an uneven thing, probably because of the auto selecting I did in Lightroom based on luminance to separate the stars from the background, and it needed to not select this area. So I think we've got an issue here where the auto selection in Lightroom was kind of a problem. All right, let's compare now between, on the left is Photo AI and on the right the raw file. And this is better. So the tint area is much better. That's a much better rendition. So it would take some more manual work in Lightroom to kind of change how the auto masking got set up. I'd have to spend more time. We could probably get to a more similar result in Lightroom manually, but we're trying not to spend time. Let's look over here, and it's pretty good. Not bad with retaining the detail, and with the weeds, that's much better than what I had in manual in Lightroom. It did a better job. Let's look at the stars. See if we have crazy artifacting. Not too bad. There's definitely a little bit more artifacting than what I got in Lightroom. Let's keep looking around and see. So it does better when there's pinpoint stars. Photo AI didn't struggle quite as much. Let's look over here, because this lens had some massive lens distortion at the edges, and those stars that should have been pinpoint or streaks. And yeah, it still seems to be doing a pretty decent job even in the corner for doing this. So not too bad. I actually kind of like the Photo AI version of this image. The tint is much better than what I had, and this is pretty decent. Okay, let's see what it looks like for. This is the auto noise reduction for Lightroom. It's still a little over grainy to me. I think we need a little bit more noise reduction, but the details are fairly good still in the tint. And let's see if we get artifacting. Oh, we get a lot of artifacting. This is more than Photo AI had. I think I see more artifacting in this, in the sky here than what we have. Let's look over here in this corner. Yeah, no, not too bad. There we go. We have some more artifacting. How about the cloud? And do we retain the cloud? And I like this pretty well in the cloud. I don't think we compared that. Let's look really quick in the cloud here. And yeah, I think a similar result for Photo AI between what Lightroom and what Lightroom produced. So We have a good retention of the cloud colors and contrasts there. So it's really, the challenge is we get some artifacting. We're at 200%. At 100%, I don't see it as much. It's not as bad as it was in the previous image, but there's definitely some artifacting, and we still need to get a little bit more grain reduction in it. Oh yeah, the trees. Let's look at the trees. So yeah, you know, not too bad between the raw file and the details here. Now, if I was processing this image, I'd probably just lose all these details because I really want the emphasis to be the Milky Way and not the trees, but there you go. Okay, so that's a pretty good result, not too bad. Now we got to go fix this, so I've got to go and find what is the exposure is 1.85. So just to make sure it's apples to apples, we got to go 1.85 up. Okay, and now we can do the comparison. So let's do between. Okay, and I'm going to switch them. So there we go. Low light denoise, it used the low light model on the left, and on the right is the raw. I like the tint much better than what I had in my own manual. And then the weeds here, they look a little over sharpened to me. Again, it just seems to be over sharpened. Photo AI I don't think it had kind of this, it's not too bad in this case, but yeah, and then a little bit of over sharpening with the wrinkles in the tint too. Let's look at the stars and artifacting. Let's go to 100%. I don't see artifacts. I don't see streaks in the stars, and it's retained like cloud, Milky Way cloud pretty well. Overall, I think the Denoise AI, other than, yeah, I definitely think it's over sharpened with these stars. We have kind of some halo effects on some of these stars. So it's a little bit over sharpened in my opinion. We kind of get some grooving, graininess here because of that over sharpening. In the corner here, yeah, there's a little bit of like phantom streaking. So it's not perfect, but this seems to be a little better result than we got from the other tools with regard to the artifacting in the sky here. So not too, I might choose the Denoise AI for this specific image. Okay, and then we have PureRAW 3, and it's a mess. It is an entire mess in this with the streaking of the stars. Just phantom things all over the place, mistaking noise for stars, and not doing a good job with that. Let's look at the tint. I like this better with the tint than Denoise AI. I like the weeds better than Denoise AI. In fact, since Denoise AI is the thing that I'm liking better, let's look on, and the color difference becomes apparent when I compare the two like this. Denoise AI does not bring in the color like the others do. So that's interesting. And yeah, I do like the way that the weeds are shown here than here. These definitely look a little over sharpened to me, but the problem is this mess in the sky is a problem. That's not great. I'm just interested to see if PureRAW 3, it's not quite as big a mess in the sky. I don't know, it's really close. This is the denoise, but I wanted to see the color. And yeah, the colors, it seems like Denoise AI, or sorry, the auto denoise in Lightroom and PureRAW 3, you get the similar benefit of getting like colors, which would be important for the cloud, right? The colors and being able to have the colors. I think, it's hard. I think I slightly prefer the Lightroom rendition, but just because there's not as much artifacting, yeah, I definitely prefer the Lightroom version. The PureRAW 3 for the sky is not very usable. This is just a giant mess. It's also not super usable, though maybe if you played around with kind of the noise reduction and sharpness in post, it would be better. And then the trees, yeah, I don't really like this kind of detail brought out in the trees that PureRAW did. It's a little less pronounced in the Lightroom version. But I think for me, none of the AI models worked well with the sky in this Milky Way photo. They all kind of trashed it. And so I think I'd have to go either with my manual noise reduction in the sky in Photoshop, separating that layer, or see if maybe I could take the Lightroom denoise, auto denoise, and kind of make it work by putting it over the top. Maybe PureRAW would work that way too. But I think a common theme across all of these has been the Lightroom version is very usable in helping us. All right, so we have our next images, the hummingbird here. And let's, here we are with the original RAW on the left and what I did in Lightroom on the right. And it did a pretty darn good job of auto selection of the hummingbird. I did not change anything there. I didn't select it myself. And if we go into 100%, we retain a whole lot of the detail while getting rid of the grain. The background is beautiful, beautiful. Here's one of the potential problem areas. Over sharpening of the like bubbles in this feeder that are here could be a challenge. I think the AI is going to struggle with that. But at 100%, taking a look, you know, it looks like it's almost got the full, it's definitely a slight bit softer, but the background being just beautiful. It does have a little bit of color noise back here, it seems like to me. But yeah, overall, pretty good result for manual. Okay, let's go to comparison now between the raw file, and on the left is Photo AI. And I think we have some haloing around the beak, just a little bit, but it has better detail, even than the raw file. But it's really kind of looks to me like over sharpening again here on the head. Now we're in at 200%. So what does it look like at 100? It looks over sharpened to me. The head looks over sharpened, and it kind of makes it look a little weird that it's over sharpened here, and then the wings are so blurry. It makes it look like the wings are still moving, like I didn't have a fast enough shutter speed in this, but that doesn't seem to be what the problem is. It's just the noise that makes it look soft. So there's that, and then let's look at the bubbles, and they're over sharpened too. This makes it look it makes it look strange. It's over sharpened on the bubbles, which isn't the emphasis. So, you know, again, in Photoshop, if you merge stuff together, this wouldn't be a terrible image to use, especially because these over sharpened details would kind of become less sharp as I merge together this image on top of the raw. But yeah, this, you know, not too bad. It's for an automated solution, not too bad. Okay, enhanced. So this is now the auto denoise in Lightroom, and I like it better. From at this 100% view, it doesn't seem as over sharpened. It seems like the colors are improved slightly, and the wings, I don't know, maybe it isn't quite fast enough. Maybe I do have a shutter speed issue with this where it's not as fast as shutter speed. But that it doesn't look as weird to me between the head and the wings on this one. Let's check the bubbles, and they're not over sharpened to me. It looks pretty good. Let's go in 200%. Yeah, I like this result overall as an automated result. The grain is not super bad. I mean, it's only an ISO 1000 image, so it wasn't super noisy to begin with, like some of the others were. That's certainly the Milky Way, but we don't have crazy artifacting, and this is a really, really good automated result. So I would take this over my result, my manual result for sure. And this would be a really good start. Maybe I would try to increase the noise reduction just a little bit to get rid of a little bit more grain, but that's being very picky in this one. Okay, we got to fix the exposure difference. So we're going to go find the exposure was 0.55. And so let's take it up to 0.55. And now we can go back to library and compare. Okay, so on the left is Denoise AI. It chose the low light setting, and on the right, the raw file. I think I like the details in the head pretty well, but again, it looks very different. The details head to the wings. It wasn't this different before. It looks like we might have a little bit of a halo or over sharpening of the beak. You know, we do. Background looks pretty good, pretty nice. Let's look at the bubbles. 200%. That's not too bad. Slightly over sharpened in the Denoise AI low light, but and you know, comparing the backgrounds here. So again, a pretty nice rendering here, a pretty nice noise reduction, AI noise reduction from Denoise I like Lightroom's better. And then we have last is DxO Prime, and let's go to 100%. And we get the coloring. DxO Prime, the colors really seem to come out with the DxO Prime. We don't have the issue around the beak where it's over sharpened. So this seems like a super close second. So again, I want to compare DxO Prime to Lightroom's auto denoise, and just to compare, boy, again, super similar. These two seem to be very close to producing the same result. There's a little better auto degraining of the noise in DxO Prime, and I like that, the bubbles. Yeah, I would choose DxO's image on this one for sure. It's already done, whereas I think I need to add a little bit more grain. Maybe if I applied the Auto Denoise AI in Lightroom at a higher strength level, it would be better. So that would be kind of something to play around with in your images, especially if you're going to apply it all to a big shoot. Okay, last couple of images. We're almost done. We're getting there. All right. So here's the comparison of the sports photo. Here's the RAW on the left. Original RAW file, ISO 5000, but this is the Canon R6, so the low light performance is better than some of these other images that we've used. So you can see from manual, I did select subject to be able to select the subjects here, and it did a decent job. So I didn't change it at all. I just let it select, and I'm applied more noise reduction to the background than the subjects with the masking. And we've retained good detail. We have good detail. The hair is something to look at. The jersey. We have the net is something to be aware of. We've definitely lost some sharpness. It definitely is a little softer, but it's dealt with the grain pretty well, and the background is very nice. I like how that was able to come up and be, it did a great job of kind of detecting the background from the foreground. We have all these faces, so it's going to be interesting to see what faces did Photo AI pick. But in general, this is a very usable image. We're at 200% at 100. You know, as far as detail goes, the subjects are sharper than any of the rest of it, which is totally what we want. And a very usable image here in manual noise reduction. All right, now we have on the left is Photo AI, and on the right, the original RAW file. And immediately I can tell we got a problem with the jersey. This has caused an issue where it's rendered the jersey really strangely. I don't like this area very much. It had a hard time telling the difference between the shirt and the mouth, and that looks a little funny. Oh, the net is terrible. The net is really, really struggling in Photo AI. Let's check the background. It looks like this detected a face and it's enhanced the face, even though that's very much in the background. Another one enhanced the face, another one. So difference here, look at that. That didn't think that was a face and I thought this one was, so it enhanced it. And same here, we have differences. The face detection stuff is kind of a struggle. And again, you can manually in the tool go in and change that, but that's an issue. Let's see. Here's what Lightroom did automatically. It dealt with the jersey just fine. It dealt with the net just fine. Ball looks good. The background, the face, that looks good. That looks good. Yeah, so this is definitely better than what Photo AI produced for this image. Let's check the Denoise AI. And we might need an exposure adjustment again on Denoise AI. Let's go see. So we'll go to the RAW file. Nope, no exposure adjustment. Okay, so we're okay. And let's take a look. So here's, again, the RAW on the right and Denoise AI on the left. We have some artifacting in the background, over-sharpening here, over-sharpening here. Let's see how the jersey did. Yeah, not good. Probably a result of over-sharpening again, and over-sharpening in this. Let's see, the net is awful, very over-sharpened, but it doesn't have the face detect problems necessarily. I don't like what it's done with the face. We have over-sharpening in this area too. So Yeah, there's definitely, I don't like this as much. I wouldn't want to use that image. All right, and here's PureRAW 3. And let's look at the jersey. And yeah, PureRAW 3 did okay on the jersey. And the hair, I might prefer the hair a little bit. It looks like there's a little more detail. The net is pretty good. The ball, oh, I don't really like that it kind of chose to do some sharpening back here. So that's not quite as good. Let's compare this to, instead of the raw file, let's compare to, I think this is enhanced, yeah. Okay, let's see. So on the left is PureRAW 3 and on the right is what Lightroom did. So Lightroom did not struggle in this area. And come down here. I think the background is just more pleasing to me or less sharpening artifacty things in the faces that's happening here. So I like better what Lightroom Auto did, and I probably like it a little better than what I manually did in Lightroom than what I get out of PureRAW 3. So I think Lightroom kind of wins again. I would probably still do a little bit of grain. I like the hair here better for sure. But overall, at 100%, it's less, you see less differences. And yeah, I would choose the Lightroom Auto AI, I think. Look, we have some over sharpening of the background here. It's probably still a very usable image out of PureRAW 3, but I like what I got out of Lightroom AI better as a starting point. All right, last image. We're going to start here. There we go. On the left is the raw, and on the right is what I did manually. This is intentionally one I included because it's ISO 12800, and not only is it that, it's on a really old Canon camera, the 7D Mark II. So this is a super challenging image, very, very challenging. Tons of noise, tons of issues with dynamic range, and so you have contrast between darks and shadows is a problem. So, overall, being able to work with it on the right, and I did auto select again, auto masking. I definitely gave up some sharpness in order to reduce the noise, but I don't have weird artifacting, and it's still rendering, the ribbon details here really good. The ornaments, as we look around, look pretty good. We have some advantages. Overall, it's good. It becomes a usable image after I process it in Lightroom. Okay, so now let's compare original raw on the right, and we have Photo AI on the left. And wow, over sharpening. There is a massive amount of over sharpening in Photo AI. This is just way over sharpened. I do not like how it's created things. Look at this. This is just awful here. Not good. I do not like what we got out of Photo AI. Let's take a look at, this is what Lightroom Auto Denoise did. And it's still got more grain than I'd want. So I'd probably either want to change the strength of the auto noise reduction or try to just apply some global noise reduction, which has been constant throughout all of these comparisons, that the grain is still present, largely present, but the details are good. The details are pretty good to be able to get some details there. And colors. It's improved the colors a little bit to me. I think we have, again, another case where somehow this AI tool was able to get the colors. Look at this. Disneyland. That's a really good noise reduction and retaining the detail that you can still read what's on the ornament really, really well. It's an area to make sure we look at. Here is Denoise AI, and it's not as good with this ornament for sure. I don't think it has as crazy artifacting as I saw in Photo AI, probably because Photo AI did not only noise reduction, but it used the sharpening. I think we've struggled, like the color advantage we seem to get with the Lightroom didn't seem to be there. And we still get like a bit of graininess here on the outside. Let's look at the blinds, see how that, Yeah, that looks really good. The blinds looks really, really good. So not bad, not bad. Topaz DeNoise AI did a pretty good job. It's not over sharpened. I don't like this as much as I did in what Lightroom had. Now PureRAW 3, and color wise, I think we get that advantage again. Look at this. This is in the raw file and it looks very desaturated and like the colors aren't there. And it's hard to even tell this is Mickey Mouse and Minnie Mouse. But in here, because of the color, it brought it back and it figured out how to do it. PureRAW 3 is really doing a good job with super high ISO images and retaining detail and bringing back color. Look at that, desaturated compared to this. Let's compare PureRAW 3 to Lightroom again, which I think is that one. Yep. Nope, that's not it. That's Photo AI. There it is. These two. Okay, so there's PureRAW 3 on the left, and here is Lightroom's Denoise. And again, super comparable in the results. Very, very similar results, PureRAW 3 to Denoise AI. Just more grain than I'd like in this image, so I'd want to add some more noise reduction and see if I could get a good balance of the global noise reduction, manual reduction controls, or apply Auto Denoise AI more strongly. But you have very similar images between PureRAW 3 and what is now in Lightroom as a default or as a capability. Wow, it's great. Look at the detail that you see in there, and the color is really nice. It's really kind of brought back like the image. It's really done a fantastic job of bringing the image back to something that's really good in comparison to what we started with. So, yep. Okay, so you can make your own judgment. You can decide how you think things fared and whether there's something that you want to invest in or not. In these test images, PureRAW 3 in general seemed to be a better result than the other add-ons, but Adobe's they've saved themselves. They've really stepped up to the plate with the very recent release of the Auto Denoise in Lightroom, and it seemed to do a really good job across these images. The Topaz stuff allows you to fine tune it to the point where I'm convinced I've used Denoise and Sharpen AI and Gigapixel AI, and the value there to me was you have the ability to guide the AI. You can choose the models, you can choose how they work. That advantage for those separated tools, Denoise AI, Sharpen AI, Gigapixel AI, that to me gives you some flexibility so that on an image by image basis, the batch processing is not a very good use case there, but image by image, you might be able to get even a more pleasing result than PureRAW or Auto Denoise out of Lightroom. Maybe, I don't know, the colors would be what would be interesting to compare there. But the Photo AI, to me, you get the worst of both worlds in Photo AI. You lose a lot of control about how things work with the AI, and it over applies things on a pretty consistent basis. So much so that in several of these images, the result was just not useful. I wouldn't even want to use it, not even to just blend it back in Photoshop. So that's how I saw it, but you can decide. You can leave comments on this video and tell me what you think, which you think won, and how the battle went. But thanks so much for watching. You can catch me over at phototacopodcast.com for more videos, and I'd appreciate it if you liked and subscribed. See ya.